mic?
Those are Greg's.
Oh.
This here.
It had been laid down for equality, but
I'm just running through the song list so I have them all programmed.
I'm liking playing some music at some of these things.
Oh, yeah.
I like that.
I hate to say it, but I hate all the hymns in the
Yeah, they're so draggy and so.
Please God, show him the way.
And
Please God, on this day, spirits all give him the strength. Peace can come if you really want
here's one I
it.
like, and that's Blue
I had a fragile dream in a great house in the Hamptons. I'd been there before, singing songs and doing benefits.
So are you going to stay on the worship committee or?
Yeah, you got to find a way to make it less time consuming.
Yeah. Well, they need more new people, and I'm not going
Right,
to
I understand why,
I'm
like,
just not going to do it.
Diane, was getting tired of it doing it.
Yeah.
Seems like they want you to be there.
You said add these together, carry the two. Now you can do this hard thing. At a cold winter station, breathing.
Okay.
But I'm not that comfortable public speaking either. But
Well, the way I look at it is, if anybody doesn't like it, they can come up here and
Yeah.
do it. It's a lot of work.
well, and that's what I said.
And,
People are
you
not
know,
going to be
Right. So,
critical.
you go out there and give it your best shot. Your shot is probably 9% better than a lot of people's best shot because they don't put themselves out there and do it.
That's true. It's true. I don't really think we're going to have a big crowd today.
No, that's the other disappointing thing.
Yeah.
You spend all this time and effort
I know.
putting together a service,
Yeah.
and
However you
Where
get
is
people
everyone? We're
on.
5 minutes away from starting.
That's what I'm wondering too. There's like 5 people in the hall. Dang, maybe we aren't going to have anybody here today, Harley. I guess that'll make us relax, huh? Boy,
I mean,
and
IPS
that's why
starts
I'd like
Monday,
us to be a
so.
bigger congregation. 'Cause
Yeah.
sort of,
well,
all of this.
I hate to say this, we used to be. And I really feel like Reverend Anastasia, we made us lose a lot of people
actually looked at UU Indy, but we live at Ellisonville and 81st. So it seemed like to participate in anything, you're selecting down to Butler.
Yeah.
It's kind of, out of the way compared to this. So
Well, and I
kind of-
just lived down the street too, here
Yeah.
in Lawrence. So, and that's the thing, I did go visit UUI, and what was funny is, after being a Catholic, I'm not crazy about all the rituals.
Right. There weren't
Go to
any.
UUI, they have the water.
Can you hear me?
And I'm like,
Yep.
oh my God, more
It's
rituals.
a little, let's try it again.
I did not like it.
Yeah. How's that?
Oh gosh, we aren't going to have
Where is it on you?
It's clipped right up here on the left.
This is very pitiful. I guess they weren't
Okay,
excited
try
about
again.
our talks.
Hello? Is that a little more?
But it is summer.
It's
People
summer,
are
it's
on
More reasonable?
fair, vacation, kids going
No
back
big
to school.
No?
speaker draws
Yeah,
that
it's
they
fine.
are aware
It's fine?
of.
Okay.
They don't realize how great a
You know how to
Right.
turn it on and off,
Right.
right? Yes. So, it's on right now. I'm just gonna mute you, and then don't touch it the whole time. So I've muted you now.
This is sad. We do have about 4 more minutes. Are you doing that before your talk or in the beginning or when? Morning, how are you, Sarah? Hello. Started Nazarene. Joining us virtually, and those of you present here at All Souls Unitarian Church of Indianapolis. I am Betty Lynch, serving as the worship associate for today's service, pronouns she, her, and this is my first time as your worship associate, so I ask that you bear with me if things don't go smoothly as planned. Together with Sarah Cannon, our Director of Children's and Community Programming, pronouns she, her, and our speaker, Rick May, who you just saw running up and down the aisle, pronouns he, him, we thank you for joining us this morning. If you are visiting us this morning, we are glad that you are here with us. We welcome you and invite you to bring with you this morning, your authentic, whole self, as you join us in worship. In a few moments, we will open our service with our reading of the covenant and chalice lighting. These rituals remind us to continually renew our promise to live into our covenant, to put love into action, and to live out the community of love and justice we aim to be. Our guest speaker today is Rick May, who has been a member of All Souls for approximately 3 years. Along with his wife Mary, they co-chair 2 of All Souls' annual pledge drives. They frequently serve as ushers at weekly services. Rick is also a worship associate and participates in Share the Pulpit. Rick has a BA in Urban and Environmental Studies with a concentration in city planning from Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, Ohio. Additionally, he has a Juris Doctor degree from the Cleveland Marshall College of Law at Cleveland State University in Cleveland, Ohio. He is also a graduate of Cleveland State University, Leadership Academy, and Leadership Toledo. And now Sarah Cannon is going to make some announcements.
Good morning. I have a few announcements this morning. And one, obviously, if you've been watching the news or even just talking to your friends, I think you probably already know, and that is that we are seeing a sharp surge in the number of positive COVID cases in the county right now and across the state. Marion County is now being considered a high-risk area. So please wear your mask at all times while you're in the building until you hear otherwise. More information will be coming soon, so thank you so much for attending to that. You'll also see these brightly colored green connection cards in the aisles. Those are a great item to fill out in order to stay connected to our church during the week, to let us know about programming you're interested in seeing that you don't see yet, and to express interest in upcoming program already scheduled. So please do take a look at those. A couple of more things that I want to just highlight briefly. One is that tomorrow, August 1st, is Reverend Katie Romano Griffin's first day. I'm so excited to work with her, and I just want to thank you all for finding such a cool minister to get to work with. That's really exciting. East Coast Migrant Head Start program, this is just a quick reminder that we need to make sure that we're keeping the doors shut and not propped while that program is in session, and also that they are looking for some specific kinds of direct support, and you can read more about that in our order of service. Also, if you plan to attend the Ending Gun Violence rally this Monday at the Indiana State House, please connect with Jennifer Yumibe, who will be there. You can reach out to her via email at jenniferumibe@yahoo.com, or she can be reached at 317-446-3613. Those are in Realm. They're also in the order of service. She's happy to be a point of contact and joined us this past Monday for the first day of this special session at the State House on abortion. So thank you very much, Jenny, for that. And thank you, All Souls, for all the ways in which you serve and all that you do. Welcome, and let us worship together. Our opening words this morning are by Sharon Wiley. It is said that ministers are here to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. I say we are all afflicted, and we are all comfortable. May our time together this morning be a comfort and a confrontation. May we here find peace in times of tumult. May we here invite tumult into lives of peace. May we here find calm in times of restlessness. May we here allow restlessness to evolve into action. Let this be the place you consider what you've never considered. Let this be the place you imagine for yourself something new and unthinkable. May this hour bring dreams of new ways of being in the world. Come, let us worship together. I want to invite Savannah Kennedy up here now to help light the chalice and mention something she specifically asked me to tell you, which is that we had quite a few cucumbers in the community garden this morning, and you'll see that there is a bag of them here. So anyone who is craving a cucumber for their lunch should come and get one after the service. As Savannah lights our chalice, we will recite the covenant that is on the wall behind us. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. This is our covenant.
The law, it had been laid down for equality, but some southern states did not agree. Races must be separate on the bus, they did say, and at stations all along the way. The Freedom Riders came, challenging these wrongs, bonded by a will that was so strong. The year was 61 when the first bus left D.C., riding to demand equality. Angry mobs were waiting, hearts filled with hate, hands filled with weapons, but the riders did not hesitate. Freedom riders got to ride, only the brave can step inside. They paid their fare with courage and sacrifice.
Good morning again. So, this is a very special time for all ages. Today, I want to tell you about a girl named Claudette Colvin. Claudette grew up in Montgomery, Alabama, and when this story begins, in 1955, she was only 15 years old. Now, Montgomery, Alabama is a place that might ring a bell for you. That's because Black organizers in Montgomery were very important to the civil rights movement of the 1950s. Black Americans made really important contributions to American society in all kinds of ways, including by serving in World War II, in the military, and as part of the Women's Ambulance Corps, where they risked their lives to help others. But Black people were not treated with equity and basic respect here at home. One example that Black people in Montgomery decided to address head on was the way that Black people were treated when they rode the bus. Now, 3 out of every 4 people in Montgomery who rode the bus was Black. The bus company made most of its money from them, but they were expected to give up their seats and stand so white passengers could sit down, even if the Black passengers had gotten there first. And because it was legal to treat Black people worse than white people, bus drivers did other things they weren't supposed to do, like assault Black passengers, like push them off the bus and leave them stranded. When the Supreme Court said that it was illegal to make Black children go to different schools than white children, and told white people that they had to integrate the schools, many white people in Alabama got angry, and this behavior got worse. Now, here's why Claudette Colvin is so cool. 9 months before most people had even heard of Rosa Parks, Claudette Colvin was dragged off a Montgomery, Alabama bus and arrested for refusing to give up her seat to a white woman. I felt like Sojourner Truth was pushing down on one of my shoulders and Harriet Tubman was pushing down on the other, saying, "Sit down, girl," Claudette said later. I was glued to my seat. Well, other Black adults had refused to give up their seats in the past, but Claudette was not an adult. She was the same age as some youth you might know who come to church here, like Ellie or Lydia or Zach and Kevin. They're all 15 right now. And she did something new. She went to a lawyer named Fred Gray, the same lawyer who later represented Rosa Parks in court and Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And she tried to fight back. And at first, Mr. Gray was planning to file a civil rights lawsuit on Claudette's behalf. But then he talked it over with some other civil rights leaders, and they decided to wait for a different person, a different case. They knew that whoever they chose to defend might become famous, might be on TV and in the newspapers. They wanted to pick the person. Claudette was still a kid, and she didn't have any civil rights training. A few months after her protest, she became pregnant. And civil rights leaders knew that many people would disapprove of and stereotype an unmarried pregnant teenager. Maybe they were even disapproving of and stereotyping her themselves. So they did not support Claudette in her fight for justice. Claudette Colvin was put on trial, and the court found her guilty. She was placed on probation, and she was even beaten up and harassed by white people afterwards. Though many people in her community were proud of her, others treated her as a troublemaker. Everything changed, she said. I lost most of my friends. Their parents had told them to stay away from me. All of this must have been so hard. She might even have felt like her big, brave risk didn't change anything after all. When I think about Claudette during that time, I feel very sad. But about a year after all of this happened, and 3 months after Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat, Claudette's protest became very important. Civil rights leaders wanted to get a case in front of the Supreme Court about bus segregation to see if they would decide the same way they had with school segregation, that separating black and white people on the bus was not legal. But Rosa Parks' case would still have to go through the Alabama courts, and that would take time. So Claudette and 4 other protesters had already been found guilty by the state of Alabama. Lawyers could group their cases together and file an appeal that said Alabama got it wrong, and they could go to the federal courts, the courts for the whole country, right away. So that's what they did. And in 1956, the Supreme Court said that segregation on buses was illegal and that buses had to be integrated. So Claudette played a big, important part in ending segregation. I think that Claudette Colvin is someone that we should think about anytime things get tough. Anytime we think to ourselves, I'm just one person, or I'm too little to do anything, or no one will care. Claudette probably had those thoughts too, but she didn't let that stop her. She paid attention to history. She paid attention to civics, to learning about how our government is supposed to work, even though sometimes it doesn't live up to its own standards. Our leadership is just we ourselves, she said. On TikTok, we'd say she understood the assignment. What Claudette Colvin did mattered, even if some people didn't fully appreciate it at the time. I also think we should keep Claudette in mind when we are deciding how and when we will show up for other people. If making her give up her seat for a white person was wrong, it was wrong, period. But other people let her down because they didn't think she was the right kind of person to deserve their help. And we do that a lot in justice movements. There are also times when we have to remember to show up ourselves because we can more safely do so. For example, Nasreen. Some of you guys know Nasreen, right? Who does all our communications and all of our adult faith formation, was born in another country, and she's not an American citizen yet. It can be really hard to become a citizen here, especially as a black or brown person. So being seen at a protest could actually mess that up for her. We can support her by showing up on her behalf. We can say to ourselves, I'm here for Nasreen, too. Claudette Colvin's still around, by the way. You can look her up and watch interviews with her on YouTube. Her criminal record from that court case back in 1955 followed her until last year, 2021, when it was finally wiped from her record, which was, a way of admitting that she should never have been arrested or charged with a crime in the first place. Here's what Claudette looked like when it happened, when she was 15 years old. And I'll bring this down to the quilts. And here's what she looks like now. She's a brave, tough person, and a good example for you to use whenever we feel called to speak truth to power. Thank you.
In 1968, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and many others called for a revolution of values in America. They sought to build a broad fusion movement that could unite people and impacted communities across the country. Their name was a direct cry from the underside of history, the Poor People's Campaign. Today, the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival, has picked up this unfinished work. People are coming together to confront the interlocking evils of systematic racism, poverty, ecological devastation, militarism, and the war economy, and the distorted moral narrative of religious nationalism. We understand that as a nation, we are at a critical juncture, that we need a movement that will shift the moral narrative, impact policies and elections at every level of government, and build lasting power for poor and impacted people. Recently, I attended a rally that was promoted by the Poor People's Campaign. That was a march from the Circle to the State House, where speakers promoted Medicare for all and emphasized that health care is a human right and is part of economic justice. They spoke about the many reasons all people should have access to health care, and I listened to some of their horror stories. Some said it was just the right thing to do, and I agree with that. Most of the information provided was not new to me, but one speaker said that we have been so distracted by so many events with the pandemic, mass shootings, and politics that we have forgotten about the importance of providing health care for all. In other words, we have taken our eye off the ball, and now is the time to bring it back into play. Healthcare should not be profit-driven because we know that when money is on the table, our health and well-being suffer. Insurance companies have made healthcare complicated, and sometimes we get lost in the confusion of it all. America spends more money than most other countries. In many cases, people don't get the care and services needed because they don't have any or good insurance and may not be aware of how to access care. I was without insurance for a time when my young son was bitten by a dog. I took him to emergency care and was told I had to give them $200 up front before they would see him, and I didn't have the $200. They suggested I could take him to Wishard, the state hospital at the time, but I opted not to do that, and he was not seen at all. It worked out okay for us, but what if he had been serious and I couldn't get him to the state hospital? I don't know if this is still the case, but I suspect there are other low-income people who still experience incidents like this. I should have been able to take him to the closest facility and he be treated, and this is what would have happened in most wealthy countries. Here are some of the things we can do to help create economic justice for all. These steps come from the Poor People's Campaign, and we can all be part of this change this country needs to move forward together and not one step back. Demand that every member of Congress publicly acknowledge the reality and pain of 140 million poor and low-wealth people and recognize a moral crisis that must be corrected, reckoned with, and repaired. This is an emergency, and we need emergency action now to redress these injuries. Declare that this campaign will engage in massive mobilization and outreach through every means available to us by visits, letters, petitions, candidate forums, and phone calls. Advocating for our current representatives to take action now to address the needs of 140 million poor and low-wealth people in this country. Register and educate poor and low-income communities to vote in every election. for candidates who commit to address poverty and low wealth from the bottom up. We must vote in historic numbers for our ancestors, for our children, and for generations to come whose lives and planet are under threat today. Declare that we are a movement that votes. We call on the people and low-wealth people to march in mass assembly from here to the polls this November, and to use your voice to make your voices heard. We will expand the we included in we the people and fight with every tool we have to ensure no voice is excluded from this democracy, no vote is denied, and no cry for justice rising up from this moral fusion movement is unrepresented at the ballot box. Forward together, not one step back. Thank you.
We share joys and sorrows each Sunday as part of our spiritual practice of community and our covenant to live by the Spirit of love. In our All Souls community, we hold in our hearts everyone who is currently dealing with COVID and other illnesses. We continue to live within a time of COVID. We hold you in our hearts. In our larger community, we wish our Muslim community a blessed, happy New Hijrah year with the start of the lunar calendar. For many Muslims, this is a time of reflection on the past year and a looking forward and setting of intentions for the coming year. And tomorrow, our pagan and Wiccan communities begin to honor the harvest season with an autumn festival known as Lugnasad. And it's not too early because we're picking cucumbers already. This is one of 4 yearly festivals that also serves as a time for reflection and a time for preparation for harvesting and looking towards winter. We hold our faith communities in our hearts. And we also hold in our hearts all who showed up at the State House in opposition of State Bill 1. Cindy Seivert, Kathy Tanner, Kathy Kozlowski, Keisha Hensley and family, Kelly Jones, Jennifer Umibe, Sandy Ryberg, Faith Long was definitely there. I shared a TikTok this week of Faith being interviewed, so thank you so much for that. We had a group of congregants from All Souls Carpool, and we met up with others at the State House from UUCB in Bloomington, from Muncie, from UU Heartland, and others. We want to name that we had at least 2 people try to physically testify on Monday and Tuesday on behalf of our faith and childcare workers, our summer minister, and Kelly Jones. And I personally want to name that I know that Elizabeth was there until at least 5:30 on Monday night, waiting for an opportunity to testify. So I'm very grateful for her time and effort. The Senate took in-person and written testimonies that they were able to send in despite not getting to do so in person. We know that this is heavy, knowing that the Indiana Senate passed this bill that will make it hard for pregnant people to access abortions unless it's in rape or incest cases with a signed, notarized affidavit. Our summer pastoral care minister put out some communication about forming a reproductive justice team at All Souls. We're taking the steps necessary to show up and act. We hold this in our hearts, knowing that the fight for reproductive justice remains. For our meditation today, I have a little bit of help. So if you would come up and join me, you can stand in front of me. Thank you so much. Right here. This is not a prayer that you may find hope. For hope is a luxury that some cannot find and others cannot afford. This is not a prayer that you find more love in the world, though I hope you continue to feel love and to send love to those near and far. I pray instead that you may find tools, a hammer lying in the grass, a roll of duct tape curled up and forgotten on a high shelf in the back of a closet, a wrench poking out of the back pocket of a stranger. Take these tools and gird thyself. A hammer for justice, duct tape to hold together your broken heart, a wrench to grip and provide advantage in applying torque to turn objects or turn the world. Take these tools and others you may find in places expected and unexpected. Take these tools and gird thyself, for weeping may last through the night, but the work begins in the morning. Thank you.
This morning, half of our offering will go to the American Civil Liberties Union of Indiana. Your contributions today will support the important work of our local ACLU in protecting our constitutional rights. The ACLU was founded in 1920, and the nonprofit, nonpartisan Indiana chapter opened in 1953 with help from All Souls. Its purpose is to protect the rights of individuals and groups that are guaranteed in the United States and Indiana Constitution and civil rights laws. Last week, we were privileged to have Ken Falk, current director of the ACLU of Indiana, in our pulpit to talk about the work of this important organization. To contribute, you can put cash or check into the collection plate, or if online, you can go to allsoulsindy.org, where you will find a link that says Give to All Souls here on the left side. It's beneath the description for today's service. Thank you for your generosity in supporting the mission of All Souls and for your continued love for one another and for this world. Take this moment to make your gift. This morning offering will now be given and gratefully received.
Please, God, show him the way. Please, God, on this day. Spirits all give him the strength. Peace can come if you really want it. I had a fragile dream in a great house in the Hamptons. I'd been there before, singing songs and doing benefits. Was in a room alone, putting on my makeup. Like so many things that come to me, the dress came across the Persian carpet. As I fell into the dress, a thought came to me. Into my heart, I have a dream, and a door opened. I turned to face the music. I was ready for the Kennedys.
The Corner. I belong to a nonprofit gym called Rock Steady Boxing, where I box and exercise about 2 times a week. It keeps me in shape despite my mild Parkinson's disease. Oh, don't worry, we only box punching bags, not other people. At Rock Steady, we have corner men, corner women, and corner persons. Corner people are usually spouses or friends who are there to be in your corner of the boxing ring, to support you, to partner with you on exercises and boxing. And they're not charged any fees to participate in these workouts. They help workouts be easier and better and more fun. In boxing, it has been said that cornermen are one of the most valuable allies and assets a boxer has in a fight. They're part general, part strategist, part physician, part psychologist, part nutritionist, 100% inspiration, and all respect. There are 3 major requirements of a corner: commitment, emotional connection with your boxer, and actually performing the tasks of the corner. The corner must be committed to boxing and to his or her boxer. The corner has to want to do the work and job of cornering. Of course, it's a lot of work and it's time-consuming. The corner has to be emotionally and spiritually connected to his boxer. They have to want what's best for the boxer, care and believe in their boxer. And in the end, though, it's the boxer that's the decision maker. It's the boxer's mind and body that enters the ring. The corner has to actually do and perform the tasks of a corner person as well. Skills like training, sparring, coaching. Since the job of a corner is to be supportive, almost anyone can be a corner if they're willing to commit to the job and do the work. You don't have to be a particular race, nor gender, nor sexual preference, nor ethnicity. You just have to want to do this work and actually go out and do it. There are several benefits also to being a corner person. It keeps you sharp and in shape. You also have the unique and golden opportunity to help another person and have a great impact on your boxer and his or her life. Being a good corner person provides the opportunity to live on in eternity as you positively impact your boxer, and your boxer pays your corner person support forward to another boxer. Cornering is pay it forward immortality from one corner man to one boxer. Then that boxer becomes a corner person to another boxer, and the cycle continues. In life, sometimes you need to be the boxer or fighter, and sometimes you need to be the corner. We have all benefited from corner persons in our lives. Our task is to pay forward the support of our corners by serving as corner people for others. Corner people are one of those things in life you cannot have too many of. Corner people in your life have included teachers, neighbors, mentors, bosses, coaches, scout leaders, friends, and family members. Corner people are people that took the time to care and help you, people that were willing to put your needs and interests first, even ahead of their own. Historic events have benefited from the work of corner people. These events include the first, second, and third Reconstructions. It is not an exaggeration to say that social change does not happen without corner people. The first Reconstruction occurred in the South in the years immediately following the end of the Civil War. During this time period, a unique and historic event happened. Black and white people actually viewed themselves as allies. Freed slaves and poor white farmers created a fusion coalition. By 1870, every southern state was led by a progressive black-white coalition. In many states, the government was led by an African American majority. State constitutions were rewritten throughout the South to provide for national citizenship, equal protection, the right to vote, the right to serve on juries, and the right to public education. Unfortunately, the biracial coalition did not last, as southern states enacted Jim Crow laws, creating separate public facilities based on race. Jim Crow was not a person, but a song. Jim Crow was a popular 19th century minstrel song that stereotyped African Americans. This song title became the term used to describe government-sanctioned racial oppression and segregation in the American South. The second Reconstruction started in 1954. Known as the Civil Rights Era, a second fusion coalition was built with the participation of all races, college students, Muslims, Catholics, and Christians. On August 28, 1963, over 200,000 people marched on Washington, D.C. and witnessed Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech. The march spurred the Kennedy administration to pass strong civil rights laws. The original march is credited with the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. However, that was more than 50 years ago. A third Reconstruction is long overdue. On Saturday, June 18, 2022, thousands of people came to Washington, D.C. to help launch the third Reconstruction. They included Reverend Katie, Betty Lynch, Cece and Bruce Russell Jane, and me from All Souls. The campaign actually has the long title of the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival, which seeks to challenge the evils of systemic racism, poverty, the war economy, ecological devastation, and the nation's distorted morality, starting from the bottom and moving up. In the last few years, we have seen a war on the poor rather than a war on poverty. The impact of this year's March on Washington is difficult to put into words, particularly if you were not there, but let me try. The initial feeling that I had was a feeling of historical importance, a return to August 1963, to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., to the dream and to civil rights. The current Poor People's Campaign begins where Martin Luther King Jr. left off. It's now time to actually live that dream. The second takeaway from the march is the diversity and solidarity of the coalition that supports this movement at both the state and national levels. Our coalition encompasses over 250 labor and organizational partners, hundreds of faith partners, and dozens of national religious bodies from all races. Marchers came from many different states, big cities, small towns, rural areas. This diverse coalition is committed to lift up the poor of our nation. The recent march also brought me back to the term solidarity, which I have not used nor thought about in probably a couple of decades. The dictionary definition of solidarity is the fact or quality on the parts of communities being perfectly united or at one in some respect, especially in interests, sympathies, or aspirations. Solidarity is based upon the same Latin root as solid. The need for solidarity is probably never more important than it is today, as the world faces many difficult challenges all simultaneously. Similarly, when I think of solidarity, I envision Pete Seeger singing the labor anthem, Solidarity Forever, on a picket line. I also remember Solidarity, the Polish labor union, striking in the Gdansk shipyards and ultimately becoming an immovable force that struck down various communist governments in Europe in the 1980s. Today, I see union organizers at Starbucks and dollar stores. From COVID, we have learned that essential workers are the backbone of most of life's necessities: food, healthcare, transportation. From the march, we also learned that most of our essential workers are poor. It is time to compensate essential workers at a level that recognizes their essential nature. The Unitarian Universalist Association is an endorser of and faith partner with the campaign. UUA's endorsement is based upon the alignment of the campaign's goals, along with the strategies and tactics, with our own. The campaign also offers the opportunity to strengthen multi-faith and partner relationships, deepen our faith, and create a transformative movement for justice. Since March 2020, UUA has appointed 8 UU leaders to serve as liaisons to the campaign. At the march, we learned that it's not just boxers that need corner men. There are a whole lot of hurting people who need the support of corner people. We need to support people of color. We can help low-wage workers seek better compensation and the right to union representation. We can assist incarcerated people to return to their communities and families. The $15 an hour national minimum wage could sure use a good corner person. There are only a few of the people that can benefit from good corner people. I myself have 2 role models from the civil rights era, Robert Kennedy and Bob Zellner. I admire them for numerous reasons, but one of the major reasons is that they were good corner people. Robert Kennedy developed close ties to Indianapolis since he personally calmed the city and people of all colors on the night that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was killed. He spoke that night in Indianapolis at what now is called Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Park at 17th Street and College Avenue. For me, when I think of solidarity, corner persons, and allies, I aspire to be like Bobby Kennedy. Only about 2 months after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Robert Kennedy was also killed. And let me quote Ted Kennedy in eulogizing his brother and articulating one of the best descriptions of what it makes to be a great corner man. My brother need not be idealized nor enlarged in death beyond what he was in life, to be remembered simply as a good and decent man who saw wrong and tried to right it, saw suffering and tried to heal it, saw war and tried to stop it. Those of us who loved him and who take him to his rest today pray that what he was to us and what he wished for others will someday come to pass. As he said many times in many parts of this nation, to those he touched and who sought to touch him, some men see things as they are and say, why? I dream things that never were and say, why not? In my family, we subscribe to several streaming services. Despite all the available shows and movies, I often have difficulty finding something to watch. Recently, I stumbled upon a feature film, Son of the South, Bob Zellner's life as an activist. The movie was produced by Barry Alexander Brown and Spike Lee. After watching the movie, I want to be a corner man like Bob Zellner. He is the ultimate ally or corner person. He brings passion, courage, and commitment to anti-racism while growing up in the midst of it. His activism has lasted a lifetime. Starting in 1961, Zellner worked as the first white field secretary of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, usually referred to by the acronym SNCC, pronounced SNCC. The organization began in 1960 in the midst of student-led sit-ins at segregated lunch counters and freedom rides on segregated interstate buses. It served as a conduit for students to volunteer in the civil rights movement. Not only was Bob Zellner white, he was also a Southerner from Alabama. Both his father and grandfather had been members of the Ku Klux Klan. His dad was also a Methodist minister. Zellner's work in civil rights was fueled both by his religious faith and a desire to reverse his ancestors' racism. While attending an all-white Methodist college in Montgomery, Alabama, Zellner's sociology professor assigned his class a research project to find solutions to racism in the South. Zellner and his 4 classmates outraged school leaders by taking the research project very seriously and literally, and actually attending civil rights meetings in a nearby all-black college. He developed a strong commitment to the civil rights movement. While practicing nonviolence, he was repeatedly jailed and beaten on numerous occasions. Zellner's accomplishments also include starting freedom schools in Greenwood, Mississippi. Because it is so hard to oppose racist relatives and friends and their long-held beliefs, Southerners are often the most committed proponents of anti-racism. Zellner states, I think it is true that some of the most dedicated anti-racist people are Southerners. I think one of the reasons is they pay a huge price for the sentiment. It is very important, and they're not going to give it up easily. The other aspect is that our black sisters and brothers always think that we are going to be in the movement for a while and go back to being white again. In other words, being fully committed is a way to show you are true to the cause. Zellner, in looking back on his half-century of organizing and studying race in North America, has come to believe that the underlying issue surrounding race is the caste system, like in India, which is more rigid than a class system, spelled C-L-A-S-S. I want to be Bob Zellner because Bob Zellner is a corner person who shows that we are not defined by our past. He is flawed, he is human, he is brave. We are not limited by background nor history. Bob Zellner is me, Bob Zellner is you. He's any white person. The lesson of Bob Zellner is that we can stop being racist and become anti-racist at any moment. Bob Zellner shows us that change and conversion are possible. It is sad to know that in a country as rich as the United States, there are 140 million poor and low-wealth people, representing 43% of the population and 52% of our children. It is conservatively estimated that 250,000 people die each year as a result of poverty and inequality. The Poor People's Campaign is led by national co-chairs Bishop William J. Barber II and Reverend Dr. Liz Theo-Harris. Bishop Barber previously led the Moral Mondays effort in North Carolina. This diverse coalition implemented the Moral March on Washington, has a strategy planned from now to Election Day, Tuesday, November 8th, 2022. Tactics include grassroots lobbying of Congress and President Biden, along with voter registration and an intense get-out-the-vote effort in support of the Third Reconstruction. Now it is our time to be good corner people, following in the footsteps of Bob Zellner, Robert Kennedy, and Claudette Colvin. It turns out that you do not have to look far for good corner people. For right here at All Souls, there are people like Jim and Betty Scrimenti who have been dedicated activists all of their lives. Betty was also a volunteer freedom rider and lunch counter sit-in volunteer in the 1960s. We are grateful for their activism. As Coach Will says, don't quit on me. Please participate in the Poor People's Campaign and donate to this important cause. Finally, remember our motto: forward together and not one step back. Thank you. Thank you. It's time to close out today's service with benediction. One of the things that you learn when you're on this side of the microphone is that it's a great amount of work and many people that make weekly services happen here every week. So I'd like to thank Sarah, Elizabeth, Sandy, Betty, Greg, Nazreen, Shelley, John, Crystal, Celeste, Ollie, and anyone that I missed who helped make this morning's service possible. May you move through this coming week seeking to implement our covenant. May you enjoy the peace of mind knowing that the All Souls community, individually and collectively, is in solidarity with you, and we are in your corner. May you not be discouraged as we continue to battle for important civil rights and freedom. May you practice ongoing self-care in these difficult times. Amen.
Thank you so much for that, Rick. I'm so sorry to interrupt our normal programming. We've just gotten news from Demand Action that the gun rally has been postponed. So all of the announcements you heard about the gun rally are no longer applicable, but we'll send out a notice once the rally is back on. Thank you so much. Please enjoy the postlude that Rick has chosen called You Can Do This Hard Thing by Carrie Newcomer.
There at the table with my head in my hands. A column of numbers I just did not understand. You said add these together, carry the two. Now you can do this hard thing. You can do this hard thing. It's not easy, I know, but I believe that it's so. You can do this hard thing. At a cold winter station, breathing into our gloves, it would change me forever, leaving for God knows what. You carried my bags, you said I'll wait for you. You can do this hard thing.